Welcome everybody to our webinar, Making the Most of the British Newspaper Archive from JCS and Find My Past. My name's Amy Williams. I work here at JCS Online Resources. We're a subscription agent on behalf of Find My Past and the British Newspaper Archive for public libraries and small organisations in the UK, Ireland, Australia and New Zealand. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dr. Lorna Tiatana. Lorna is the Principal Product Manager for Find My Past, the Social History Archive and the British Newspaper Archive. So she's very well placed to provide us with an expert walkthrough of the British Newspaper Archive. Thanks, Lorna.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks, everyone, for joining me today. So this session is designed to help your library get the most from a British Newspaper Archive subscription, or to assess whether a subscription is the right fit for your patrons. So we're going to focus today on building patron confidence, increasing their meaningful usage of the platform, and supporting deeper, more successful research journeys. Hopefully helping your community explore the newspaper archives with greater ease and enjoyment. So let's take a look at what I'll be covering today. So we'll start off by exploring what the British Newspaper Archive is and how you can access it in your libraries. We'll have a think about what you can find in the newspapers. We'll touch on getting started. We'll have a look at how to browse titles, and then we'll follow that up with how to search for articles in the archive, and I'll cover some tips and tools along the way. So the British Newspaper Archive is the result of a long-standing partnership between Find My Past and the British Library, created to open up one of the world's greatest newspaper collections. The British Library holds an extraordinary record of press history. Over 600,000 bound volumes and 300,000 reels of microfilm, spanning more than 300 years and covering Britain, Ireland, and actually far beyond. Until recently, these pages could only be accessed by visiting the British Library in person, and none of it was searchable. Since we launched in 2011 and renewed our contract in 2021, this project has transformed this vast physical archive into the world's largest online collection of British and Irish newspapers, with hundreds of millions of pages now fully searchable by name, place, keyword, date or title. And today your patrons can explore everything from 18th century local newspapers to contemporary regional press, hopefully giving them an unprecedented window into the lives, stories and histories of communities across the UK, Ireland and the wider Commonwealth. So from the British Library site at Boston Spa in Yorkshire, Find My Past digitisation team meticulously preserve and scans each page for publication. And from there, our software engineers make every word of that small print searchable on the British Newspaper Archive website. And I've just added a few sort of behind the scenes shots here so you can see the process in action. Here you can see some of the team at the large flatbed scanners creating the image files and working on some of the image zoning. And I thought you'd be interested just to see some of these images. So the initial ambition for the partnership with the British Library was to digitise 40 million pages. But earlier this year, the archive reached a really major milestone. We reached 100 million digitised pages, with new material added every week, including free-to-access content. Now, as you can imagine, the British Library's newspaper collection is huge, and I've had the chance to visit it, and it is it's an amazing thing to see. And to digitise it would actually be probably a lifetime's work for our team. So we therefore have to prioritise the newspapers we add and the time periods that we cover. And people often ask us how we decide which newspapers to digitise. There are a number of factors that feed into this process. One is geographical coverage. Our aim is to provide at least one newspaper from each area of the UK and Ireland where there is a significant population. The second is time period coverage. We try and cover a broad time period so that researchers with different interests can benefit from the newspapers we offer. The third scenario is titles of interest and note. So some newspapers can provide more than just news, and we might decide to prioritize a title that has a particularly special angle or special opinion. Topicality is another issue that we rate things on. So we will often add extra newspapers covering a period or event of special interest. So our World War I coverage is an example of this. Or in 2018, we had a real focus on suffragist newspapers to celebrate the centenary of women getting the vote. And contracts, sometimes we negotiate contracts with publishers that require us to digitize a newspaper within a certain time frame. So what can you find in the newspapers? So in terms of what newspaper information you can find in the newspapers, you should probably consider them like the social media, the notice boards, the legal records, and the community memory of their time. So when talking about what people can discover in the British Newspaper Archive, we usually group it into 4 big categories. So the first is life events and personal milestones. Newspapers captured the big moments in people's lives, often more than modern records do. So births, marriages, deaths, obituaries, in memoriam notices, divorce announcements, and personal notices from family and friends. Here, newspapers can fill some of the emotional and the narrative gaps left by civil records, showing how people lived, not just when events happened. The second group is civic, military, and professional life. So they often also charted an individual's public footprint, especially those who served, worked, or volunteered or held roles in local organisations. In terms of military and civil service movements, we've got details around promotions and appointments, committee meetings and public roles, lists of wounded and wartime updates. These pieces aren't just administrative, they reveal careers, status, networks, and community standing. The third section is probably more obvious: news, crime, and everyday society. So this is where the real colour comes in, the stories that shaped communities and captured local life. So here we've got local, national, and international news. We've got court cases, inquests, bankruptcies, debtor notices, liability warnings, and photographs and illustrations. And here newspapers show society at ground level, from scandals to tragedies to everyday disputes, giving context to the world people lived in. And the fourth is movement, migration, and property. So newspapers often recorded the flow of people, money, and property, often in ways that no other source did. So we might see emigration ads and passenger lists. We might see visitor lists and travel notices, shipping arrivals and departures, obviously property sales and auctions. And these insights help trace migration stories and understand how and why people moved. So we shouldn't just consider newspapers as reporting events, they actually record lives. They capture the personal, the public, the mundane, and the momentous, offering details no other historical source can match. So the difference between browsing and searching for newspapers might seem really obvious, but nevertheless, it's just worth reminding ourselves. So again, using a library analogy, it's the difference between using the library bookshelves versus asking the librarian. So browsing is akin to just wandering through the bookshelves, letting the layout, the titles, and almost serendipity guide you through the newspapers. Searching is much more like going straight to the librarian and asking for the exact book, topic, or reference that you need. So search is great for delving into the details, and browse tends to reveal the bigger picture about the time of publication and the context of the story. Oftentimes I'll conduct a search and then I'll go off down a rabbit hole of exploring the rest of the newspaper the story was in. And it's always really illuminating to do this. So let's start off with a look at the homepage. So you can search and view results pages without an account on the British Newspaper Archive. But to view the full article of anything other than free collections, you do need to register for a free account. When you've set up your account, you'll see the words free access in brackets. The registration is easy. We just need a first name, surname, email address, and for the patron to set a password, then they're all set. So if we look at the home page, we can see at the top of the page, we have the simple and advanced search boxes that allow you to search by people, places, events, and more. You can also view hints and tips. You can easily find all of our free to view newspapers. You can then find a newspaper by county or title if you just want to browse through the newspapers. And at the bottom, you can see what's new on the blog and what new titles we've released this week. Now, although the site is called the British Newspaper Archive, we've begun digitising a growing range of international titles from the British Library. And these reveal the global reach of the former British Empire and the complex legacy of colonialism. These newspapers, largely written for British communities living abroad, document political affairs, military campaigns, civil service appointments, and everyday life, including births, marriages, and deaths. And if you follow the link to that blog, it will explain more about these publications and showcase some of the highlights in that collection. And oftentimes people tend to think of purely newspaper content and images entirely in black and white. So whilst newspapers give us the political, the social, and the local stories of their time, Britain's cultural identity is also written through the magazines people read at home. And adding publications such as the TV Times and Jackie extends the archive into the world of television, fandom, fashion, and youth culture, opening up a bright, vibrant new layer of recent history. So you might be surprised at what else you can find in the archive. So since 2021, the archive has been working in partnership with the British Library to build a collection of free to view newspapers. And this collection enables enhanced access to some of the more diverse newspaper holdings of the British Library. And those titles have been carefully curated by the British Library, spanning 4 centuries of news and covering not just Britain and Ireland, but the Caribbean, India, and beyond. So research in these titles can be conducted for free at home by patrons if they register for the archive with a free personal account. So if you want to browse by a particular newspaper title, you can access this feature by going to the boxes above the map and choosing a county to narrow down titles or select a particular title. And from the search box, you can also choose the option of selecting recently added titles, which will show all titles that have been added in the last 30 days. So let's pick a title, and I'm going to pick the newspaper from my hometown, the Lichfield Mercury. So within the newspaper browse function, I can browse through that selected title from its earliest issue, and then I can use any of the filters on the left-hand side, excuse me, to narrow in on a period of time if I want to. So clicking on any of the issue front pages will take me to view the full issue in the newspaper image viewer. And one more thing just to show you is the more details button. So pressing on that would take you to a page that looks like this. And the newspaper titles page gives you a wealth of information. So it gives you a free on this day sample issue. We can get information on the title and any changes of that title along its history. We can see its digitized coverage. We can see its earliest and latest issues. We can see the extent of that publication in the archive, and we can get some publication details. So here I can see it was published in Lichfield, Staffordshire. I can see a digitization timeline, so I can see when it was first added to the archive and when it was last updated in the archive. And I can also see some historical notes about the newspaper. So this is a really great page to understand the publication you're looking at. So the newspaper viewer enables you to read through the newspaper just as if it were in front of you. You can scroll through the pages or jump directly to a particular page. And there are a full range of zoom tools and also a full screen mode. And you have print and download options. When viewing an article that you've arrived on from a search, you can choose to highlight the search terms if you wish to. And if this particular page is of interest for your research, you can add it to your bookmarks for future reference. Now, once images of the original newspaper are created by the team, they are processed using what's called optical character recognition, or OCR. And OCR converts the printed text into machine-readable text so that it can be searched. As part of this process, each page is also segmented into individual articles, which helps improve search accuracy and navigation. Now, OCR is extremely useful for searching large volumes of material, but it's not always 100% accurate. And the quality of that OCR text can be affected by things like the condition of the original newspaper we were scanning or the microfilm we were taking it from, the paper quality of the newspaper itself, the font, so what fonts we use, what size of fonts, and the layout, and sometimes damaged or faded print can affect the accuracy of that OCR. So when you're viewing a page, you can actually see the OCR text via the All Articles panel on the left-hand navigation. And you can select an article either directly from the image or from the drop-down list. And you can choose Edit Article Text if you want to correct the OCR transcription. And if you do choose to correct the OCR text, your edits help improve the quality of the searchable database for all users. And every correction enhances the accuracy of future search results. So let's now have a look at searching through the newspapers. We've got a search box that can accommodate people's names, places, events, basically anything you think you can search for. So if you add a term here and click on the little search icon, you will immediately start your search and will present some other search results for you. The other option for more complex searching would be to select Advanced Search, but we'll take a look at that in a moment. So here are the search results, just an example for the Panacea Society, which is a group I've been researching recently. So the search results page provides snippets of the newspaper article, as well as the date of publication, the newspaper title, and the place of publication. And you can narrow down the list of search results by selecting options from the menu on the left-hand side of the page. Those little facet counts give you a good sense of over what time period you might have the best success searching, and give you clues around the key timeframes of interest for your search. And you can use the facets to limit your results down by publication date, newspaper title, country, regions, counties, place, access type. You can have a look at ones that have just been recently added, or by a particular article type. And we've also got some tags there as well that you can search by. So if you do complete a complex search or something you're keen to be able to repeat often, then we have the ability to save your search, and you can also, just as a reminder, bookmark search results that are of particular interest so you can readily find them again. Now, if your search is more complex, or you just want to narrow down the number of search results you see, there are some additional search tools in the advanced search form, and we can begin to explore a few of those bits of functionality now. So you have a whole host of advanced options around the publications you're searching within. You can select places or titles, the full range of tools around narrowing in either publication date or date something was added to the archive. You can filter by access type, i.e. is it a free-to-view newspaper or does it require a subscription? And this might be useful to help patrons work out which publications they could still access at home without needing a full subscription. Then there are a range of article types. If you're really specifically looking for only one type of article, you might be looking for an advertisement, for example, or where you might only want to see articles that made the front pages. Now, the BNA uses what is known as a fuzzy search. And we will first match the exact spelling of the word that you enter plus any related word variants. And this just helps capture a broader set of results. When we order things by relevance, the search results that contain the exact match will always appear first. But you can turn this off and only make an exact match tick box. And the table at the bottom just shows you the difference between exact search and what would be included in a fuzzy search, a standard search. Now, there are some additional tools, and you should really consider yourself in sort of power search mode if you begin to interact with these tools. So if you use all of these words, it means that all search items you enter in this box will be searched for. It is like using an and on many search engines. You could use some of these words, so some of the search terms you enter will be searched for. And we use a minimum match formula in the background to ensure that you get the most relevant results when you do that. And exclude these words. So this is really useful if you're searching for a common or quite ambiguous word, such as church, which might be a building, a surname, an institution, or a company. And you can begin to carve away the noise and quickly zero in on the material that actually relates to your person or your subject you're looking for. It's one of the simplest ways to turn a vast number of search results into a more focused discovery. Phrase is where you can search for words that appear together in an article. And this will search for the occurrence of your search words together in the order that you type them. And this works well when you're searching for a forename-surname combination, like if I was searching for Joe Blogs, and it will give results where the two words are located together rather than the occurrence of separate articles with Joe and blogs. And just to let you know, we ignore all sort of common words and characters known as stop words. So things like and the and how and where, we ignore those words, as well as single digits and single letters, I and A, things like that. Just some other hints and tips in terms of power searching. If you've got a hyphenated name, it's sometimes better to remove the hyphen from the name and try either to combine both words. So the Queen Mother's maiden name was Bowes-Lyon, putting those two words together rather than using the hyphen, or also searching for that name as a phrase. So just take out the hyphen and put it as a space. And this will just make sure that you get the full range of results where the OCR text has not recognized that hyphen. Similar approach to where you've got punctuation in a name, so O'Leary or O'Donnell, names like that. So if you're not having any success with the apostrophe in there, take out the punctuation and just go for O'Leary, or make it two words and search for it as a phrase. Something else to think about when searching the archives is timing. So consider what is famous now might not have been that famous at the time, or given a lot of space in the newspapers at the time. And try and think about how you would search as a contemporary would have done at the time. So here's a quick example. So you won't find any articles that talk about Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II being born, for example. She wasn't. Her mother, the Duchess of York, gave birth to a baby girl. And if you wanted to find articles about the Queen's birth, that's the sort of context you would need to search within. So in terms of top 5 search tips, number 1 would be avoid putting dates in the search box. So the best place for dates is to narrow down dates easily once you've got your search results using the filters. Don't use the search box for that. Second tip would be creative with names and phrases. So if you were looking at somebody called Elizabeth Jones, Nee Adams, they might turn up as Lizzie Adams, Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Arthur Jones, or many more variants. Equally, remember, phrases that are commonplace today might not have been commonplace at the time. So searching for World War I, for example, is a no-no, as they had no idea at the time that a second one was coming, unfortunately, in more recent times. So the First World War has really not ever been called that until after the conflict had ended. It was referred to as the Great War, sometimes the World War, and most often simply the war. Number 3, the world is your oyster. As news was often syndicated, a story could travel from a Cornish village all the way to a town in the Scottish Highlands. So you might find that local stories travelled across Britain and even beyond. Number 4, would be to search for events and places if a name search doesn't give you the results. So the names of the people involved were not always recorded. So if you know the type of event or any other information, try searching for that instead. For example, a search of drowned in Cardiff may find you the story that Joseph Edwards drowning might not. And you can clear the noise by removing certain search words from your search. So if you're looking, for example, to research the town of Buckingham, and you don't want to find out about Buckingham Palace, choose to exclude the word palace. So every week we release new titles and add new issue ranges to previously published titles. So the archive is growing all the time. So even if you can't find what you're looking for now, it's always worth it to keep checking back to the site to see if we have released new newspaper articles or new issues of those titles. And finally, there is a wealth of help and support directly available on the site, both hints and tips about how the site works, but also hints and tips to help guide patrons in their research. So I've just added a few example guides here on the slide to obituaries, uncovering local rural histories, and how to discover the history of your street. And our blogs are written by our content specialists who have a wealth of experience and expertise. And I am certainly learning new things all the time by reading these blogs, and I'm sure you will too. So that's a whistle-stop tour of the British Newspaper Archive and the experience for your library patrons. And I will happily try and answer any questions that I haven't been able to answer along the way. So there's one question here. When using Find My Past, newspapers are searchable. Is it worth searching BNA separately, or will a search through Find My Past bring up the same results? About 99% of the time, searching Find My Past will bring up the same results. After scan pages have been OCR'd, is that how the information from it will always stay? Or as OCR technology improves, are they redone periodically? So we do redo the OCR periodically, and that technology is improving all the time. So yeah, if we can improve on the quality of that OCR, we do.
I just want to thank you very much, Lorna. That was really interesting, particularly the power searching and the issues on thinking about the time. You know, you don't think about that when you're searching. So for everyone here, I hope you found that useful. We had a previous seminar last month, which was for Find My Past, and you'll find that on our YouTube channel as well. So I guess that's it from everyone. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, everyone.